All right, what's going on, everybody? Thought I'd just take a few minutes on my little break here to just talk about the RJ Barrett contract situation, the extension he got yesterday. Um, we're going to talk about it from a basketball perspective, but I also want to talk about it from just a general perspective of the way things change when people receive money in this league and how they're treated by fans and how they're perceived and the things that they're expected to do once they get a certain amount of money and just generally how much things cost these days in the NBA and stuff like that, because I think people have a weird value assessment of what players are actually worth these days, because of course you see that RJ Barrett making $30 million, and for some people this means that okay, he has to be basically a superstar now. He has to take this mystical leap that a lot of people expect him to take within the next year or so. They expected him to take it last year, if we're being honest about it. And people have expectations about what a player should evolve into a certain thing once they reach a certain dollar amount on their contract. And that's not always the case, because I don't think people are aware of how much things cost these days. In RJ's specific instance, this is more so of an upside value play as opposed to, oh, this guy is worth $30 million. Nobody in their right mind, and of course the contract itself, it might not actually end up being worth $30 million a season, but nobody in their right mind can honestly argue that RJ Barrett is a $30 million player right now. And I struggle to say that he ever will be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We have this thing with lottery picks in the NBA that they're supposed to just pan out to be superstars, and if they're not, anything else is a failure. But the ultimate goal of any draft is just to get good basketball players, and I think that there's a good basketball player in RJ Barrett. I'm not necessarily going to say he's a good player now because he's still more of a volume kind of guy now. He's shown he can play on good teams and stuff like that, but he's still kind of trying to figure out what kind of player he is. I think the idea that some people have, I don't know if it's a vocal minority or what it is, because I'm not a Knicks fan, but I see a lot of RJ Barrett as Himothy type stuff going on, and I'm not necessarily sure he's the guy that people think he is in that respect, where he's going to be a number one option and he's going to lead your team by being the main cog on the winning team. I don't think he's shown, personally, he hasn't shown me those capabilities, because what I look for in a guy like that is a guy who's able to self-create and create for others at a level that justifies like that top billing status and the amount of money RJ is going to be making. Now, like I said before, it's a value play, and for me personally, $120 million, I don't think that's too outlandish for what you're betting on if you're betting on him becoming a solid second to third piece on your team, because those things are just going to be more expensive. That's just what it is. The main guys on your team, if they're really about something, they're making upwards of $50 million a year. So $30 million is not like super expensive in today's market. You know what I'm saying? If you want a good player, a good second piece, they're going to run you anywhere from the 25 to 30 range if that's what you're expecting them to be. Will he get there? It's tough to say, but what we do know that he has shown with some consistency over the past 2 years at least is that he's going to be a 3D&D guy with some relative consistency. I think he's been shooting in the upper 30s as a catch and shoot player for the past 2 years, and some of that could be skewed by the bubble season where he shot 40%. I think he only shot around 37%, which is still like very good for what you expect him to do. So if you go into this reasonably expecting him to be, at the very least, a good defender in the team system, a good catch and shoot guy, and a guy who can catch and attack off the drive, and then whatever he adds on top of that is gravy, then I don't think you're going to be like super disappointed in this. But if you think that him getting this amount of money is some indication that they should up his on-ball reps and try to make him more of the number one guy or the number one option on the team, I think there's going to be way more growing pains than you might expect if that's your expectation, because over the course of the 3 seasons he's been in the NBA, he hasn't shown me the ability to be a creator at that level, particularly because he can't shoot off the dribble. Now, I know there are some players like, you go to the Giannis's and stuff like that, where you think that you might not need to be able to necessarily shoot off the dribble and create off the dribble and stuff like that. But for guys of RJ Barrett's size and skill set, that's a skill he's going to have to add relatively quickly. Not necessarily for what I think he should be, but before people start griping about how much money he's making for the level of production he's going to give you. Because as a play creator, his usage is nearly 30 and his assist rate is not near where you want it to be. I think it's hovering around 15 somewhere, which is it's just, I think it's 14.9 or something like that. But that's not where you want a number one option type of guy to be. And of course you can say, oh, Randall's taking the touch and all this other stuff. But even in instances with Randall is not on the floor, RJ hasn't shown that he's capable of doing that consistently. Of course, he can do some things where he comes off handoffs and he can throw a lob to Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, stuff like that, and he can make some passes to the corner and things of that nature. But in order to justify that kind of price tag in some people's minds, he has to be a more consistent and he has to have more gravity as a playmaker, and he's not going to be able to do that until he's actually able to show that he's a threat off the dribble, like as a shooter. Because he has methods of getting to the basket. He can get his way to the basket through being stronger than people and stuff like that, and kind of going through them and stuff like that. But he hasn't shown enough wiggle to show that he can consistently get there and finish without it being like kind of an endeavor. So like he gets you your 20 points, but it's not necessarily an efficient 20 points. And he hasn't really shown that he can be that kind of high level creator of offense for himself or for others. And I could see a world where the fans kind of start trying to turn on him like they kind of did with Julius last season, where he doesn't play up to the expectations they think he should as this person who's making all this money. And I worry about that a lot with younger players. Now, I'm not worried about his mental state or anything like that, because I think he's a hard worker, and I think he's going to do everything in his ability to get where he ultimately wants to be. But I think the expectations of what he ultimately could be are a little out of place right now in some corners of the internet. I don't know if that's the consensus. Like I said, I'm not a Knicks fan. But if you're expecting him to take like this massive like number one option leap, I'm not necessarily seeing it for him anytime soon until he fixes that jumper. And I don't know if he actually can fix that jumper, because there are a lot of mechanical things that I see that are going to probably be there. Partially because, I don't know if you've been on my channel before, but we talked about the idea that he's shooting with the wrong hand. And as a person who used to shoot with the wrong hand, there's a lot of mechanical things you just naturally can't do in order to make your jumper smooth in all conditions. Like, he's fine as a shooter when he can square his feet and he doesn't necessarily have to move too much, and he can just get the shot off. But when contests come into play and stuff like that, it's a little more hairy. If he has to dribble, it's a little more hairy. I'll put his numbers up. After a certain amount of dribbles, his shooting falls off completely. I think he only had like 15 unassisted threes on the season. And these are just skills that you need, especially as a number one option, because he's not going to be able to handle the rigors of just driving to the basket at his size all season for 82 games a season. It's just not feasible. Because like I said, the Giannis's of the world are like freaks in nature, and you can't reasonably expect people to do that. And that's part of the reason why Julius fell off last year and stuff like that. They kind of have a similar play style, and they kind of operate where they would operate best are in similar areas of the floor. But the difference is that Julius is a better playmaker than RJ and stuff like that, so he can kind of get away with some of that stuff. He's a better driver. He's a better finisher and all of these other things. RJ hasn't necessarily shown that he's a consistent finisher at the rim. And when he does get to the rim, if he gets fouled, he's not a good free throw shooter. It's just a lot of stuff that he has to kind of work on in the interim. And I don't know if he's going to get the grace to kind of grow into those things, if he ever grows into them. But valuable 3D&D guys are not going to be cheap. We're going to see what some of these contracts are going to look like. Some of the Bridges contracts and the Cam Johnson and stuff like that. And people are probably going to be surprised at how much money these people are actually making, because that is a valuable skill to have in this league, in this day and age. Gone are the days where like you have to be a superstar to be making $25 million a year. Like, if you look at some of the people that's making close to that amount of money, and they only have 2 out of the what necessarily 5 skills that I think you need to like be an upper echelon player. And they only have 2 of them, but they're still making that amount of money because, 1, the league is just passing out money like that these days. That's just what it is. And 2, good basketball players are valuable. And I think the numbers might not bear it out like advanced metrics and stuff like that. I think there's a good basketball player in RJ Barrett, and I think he can be like a 2.5 to third guy on your team. I'm not sure if he's necessarily consistent enough to be like a second option on like a winning team. And I'm not saying like Eastern Conference Finals and stuff like that every year. I'm talking about just going to the playoffs consistently every year. I'm not sure he's that guy yet, but I think he can kind of mold himself into that guy. But he has a lot of skills work that he needs to get in order. He needs to improve his dribbling, shooting off the dribble. He needs to improve his playmaking, and like those are large hurdles to clear for sure. But with enough work and stuff like that, I could see him working himself into a situation like, I guess we could make it probably akin to like an Andrew Wiggins type of thing, where nobody will reasonably argue that he's worth the amount of money that he's making right now. But as we saw, in the right environment with the right teammates and stuff like that, he is at the very least a solid basketball player. You can't deny that at this point. And he makes a lot of money. That's just going to be what it is for the next 4 years. It was an upside play rather than the actual value on the court play. And I just hope that people are able to see it for what it is, as opposed to putting this value judgment on him and starting to judge him negatively because of how much money he has in his bank account now. Will he relist? I don't know what the incentives are to get him to 120 million like that, but I will say that it was telling that they didn't give him the full, 5 years, $185 million. I think they see some of the same issues that I can see and other people are seeing with him in terms of his efficiency and his just overall skill level. But I am always the president of the Get Your Bag Young Man fan club, or whatever it is. What is it? The conglomerate, the baggalini conglomerate, we can call it, where, you know what I'm saying, I'm glad he got his money. His family is good for however long you want to stretch that money for. And that's a win for everybody in my book. So I am looking forward to seeing what the Knicks do. I don't know if they're going to necessarily I think they're probably going to get Donovan Mitchell at this point. I don't know what they're going to give up. Ainge is asking some crazy prices, and I am interested to see how he can fit with a point guard and Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, who are not my idea of traditional point guards, either one. Well, not traditional, but playmaking point guards. Brunson had a little bit of it in college where he was put in that situation. You can see he can make some of the reads. Mitchell, I'm a little skeptical about as far as a play creator and making stuff easier for people on the court via the pass and the dribble. Of course, his scoring gravity opens up things and stuff like that, but I'm interested to see how RJ will fit now that he actually has a point guard to actually play off of, because they've had some very ungood point guard situations in New York for the entire time he's been there. And so judging his game off of that could be kind of questionable, but I think that most of what he was capable of was able to be seen. Now, he might be a little more efficient with a point guard, but it all depends on how he's able to get into his finishing and just become a more consistent basketball player, because he has flashes of being a great basketball player. And then when there's no other presence on the court, if you look at his numbers without Randle and stuff on the floor, like, he just was a volume guy and he wasn't particularly great at it. So TLDR, I'm glad he got his $30 million. If you're expecting him to be a $30 million value at any point during his contract, you're probably going to be disappointed, but he can probably get to 2/3 to 3/4 of that value, and that's going to be perfectly fine. And it's not a knock on him if he doesn't actually become that kind of guy. So I hope that he is able to kind of grow into his game and just prove his worth as a basketball player, whether it be a $30 million basketball player or not, and just not have the fan base turn on him and and some weird like, oh, this guy stinks because he's making all his money. He can't. He's averaging 19 points a game and just all this weird thing that we like to do when people start making some money. He still can be a quality basketball player, and I think he will work himself into being one for many years to come. Other than that, I'm about to go back doing what I was doing. More videos on the way, hopefully soon, even though I was very cooked after I made that that Ingram video. I was down bad. But we still going to keep chugging along. I got some moves that kind of help me when things are getting rough. But I'll see y'all hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't think I got anything else for y'all. All right.